welcome back to our final Republican presidential family town hall. We're here with Senator Ted Cruz. Joining us now is his wife Heidi. Also, their daughters Caroline and Catherine are in the audience, right there in the front row in beautiful yellow. Welcome to both of you. It's so great to have you all here. Let me ask you, Mrs. Cruz, when was the first time you thought that Ted Cruz might actually...
We let them choose what events they want to do, and we have must-dos, and we have a lot that are not must-dos, and they get to make choices. So in the morning, they'll ask me, what are the must-dos today?
Here's another voter. This is Joe Caldarera. He's a law student at Brooklyn Law School who says he supports Donald Trump, but he's got a question for Senator Cruz. Joe?
Good evening, Senator, Mrs. Cruz. Welcome to the Big Apple.
Thank you.
There are many values in this town that are uniquely New York, and I know I speak for all of us here tonight when I say that we're very proud of those values. That being said, recently you've expressed a distaste for New York values, or at least liberal New York values. Now, as you know, many Republicans in New York may not be as socially conservative as Republicans in other parts of the United States. If you're our nominee, do you have room for New York Republicans and New York values in your party?
Well, Joe, thank you for that question. Let me congratulate you on being in law school, and good luck to you.
Thank you very much.
You know, the phrase New York values has been a phrase that folks in the press have been talking about a lot lately. It's actually a phrase that originated with Donald Trump. And the reason I made that point is that Donald did an interview with Meet the Press back in 1999, where he was explaining why in that interview that he supported partial birth abortion. And his explanation in that interview, he said, hey, I'm from New York. Those are New York values. They're not Iowa values. And that was literally out of his own mouth, his explanation for why he supported partial birth abortion. And so I was doing a radio interview, and this was right before Iowa, where I was asked about it, and I said, well, Donald says he has New York values and not Iowa values, and that was his description. Now, folks in the press reacted like I'd lit their hair on fire, screaming, you know, what a terrible thing, and, you know, Donald immediately said, well, you're attacking the police and firefighters in 9/11, which was utterly absurd. Listen, the police and firefighters and first responders that rushed into those buildings were heroes that every American cheered for and celebrated. And I'll tell you, you know, since then, you know, that people often in politics want you to run away from something, so you get reporters. When I'm here, reporters will yell questions over and over again, will you abandon? And then I said, listen, when I talk about New York values, what I'm talking about are the liberal Democrats who have been, frankly, hurting the people of New York over and over again. I'm talking about people like Bill de Blasio, who one of the first acts he did when he was elected mayor was go up to Harlem and try to shut down charter schools that were educating low-income African Americans and Hispanics because he was essentially in hock to the union bosses of the teachers' unions. You know, I did a meeting last week in the Bronx, and it was with a series of Hispanic and African American pastors. And the individual who hosted this meeting was Senator Ruben Diaz. He's African American, he's Hispanic, he's a Democratic elected state senator. And he explained to me in Spanish, he said, you know, he brought up the New York values. He said, I know exactly what you mean by New York values, because he said, I'm a Democrat, Senator Diaz, and my Democratic governor, Andrew Cuomo, said, if you're pro-life, if you believe in traditional marriage, if you believe in the Second Amendment, you have no place in the state of New York. And Senator Diaz was offended by that. And I'll tell you, I think the clearest illustration of New York values has been Mayor de Blasio's repeated pattern of standing with the criminals and the rioters and the looters instead of the police officers. In that moment, when the brave men and women in blue of the NYPD stood up and turned their backs on Mayor de Blasio, cops across this country and Americans across this country cheered. And so I look forward to representing the people of New York, to working to earn the votes of the people of New York, and to fighting for the hard-working, gritty. New York is an immigrant city. It is a gritty city. Both Heidi and I have lived in New York. It's a city that attracts the best and the brightest and people that want to conquer the world. That can-do spirit we need more of in America. But the liberal policies of Democrats that are hurting New Yorkers, we need a lot less of.